So when you think about the US education system, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Probably big names, right? Like Harvard or MIT, and all this groundbreaking research. But how does that whole massive system actually work from the ground up? Because behind those famous universities, there's a really complex and kind of surprising structure. And that's the big question we're diving into today. We're going to break down how this super influential system is put together, from the first day of kindergarten all the way to how it makes waves on the global stage. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the basic blueprint of the system. Then, we'll get into all the different pathways in higher education. After that, we're going to explore its incredible role as an engine for innovation before taking a really balanced look at its global strengths and some of its local challenges. And then, we'll wrap it all up with the final takeaway. Okay, first up, the American Education Blueprint. Before we get into all the cool, innovative stuff, we really need to get our heads around the fundamental structure, which is built on one very important idea. This right here is the most important thing to know. Unlike a lot of other countries, the US system is decentralized. What does that mean? Well, there's no single national curriculum. Instead, each individual state runs its own show. And that's why you see such a huge variety in everything from standards and funding to what's actually being taught in classrooms from one state to the next. Now, even with that state-by-state approach, the journey for a student follows a pretty familiar path. It all kicks off with primary education, building those foundational skills. Then it's on to secondary education. We're talking middle and high school, which is all about getting students ready for what's next. And for many, that final step is higher education, the world of colleges and universities. So let's zoom in on that third level, higher education. This is where the diversity of the American system really shines, with a whole range of different kinds of institutions for students to pick from. So this table kind of breaks down the three main pathways, and each one has a really different purpose. You've got your public universities, which are these big state-funded engines that make education more affordable for people who live in that state. Then you have private universities, which run more like independent nonprofits, and they're often smaller and sometimes have super specialized programs. And then there are community colleges, and these are incredibly important for offering short-term, skill-based training or just a more affordable way to start a four-year degree. All right, now let's talk about what is, arguably, the system's biggest strength on the world stage, its role as a massive engine of innovation. This is all about the powerful link between academics, pure research, and real-world tech. You see, the US is famous for these incredible research ecosystems. And this isn't just about a university having a nice lab. It's this unique cycle where government funding helps spark big ideas, the universities provide the brain power to explore them, and then private industry steps in to help turn those ideas into actual products. It's a feedback loop that just fuels constant innovation. And this ecosystem leads the way in fields that pretty much define our modern world. I mean, think about the smartphone you're holding. It's built on decades of university research in things like wireless communication and semiconductor technology, the AI that's changing literally every industry. A ton of that groundwork was laid in these university research hubs. And this really gets to the heart of it. American universities aren't just ivory towers where people go to learn. They're active, dynamic partners with industry. The research that happens on campus doesn't just sit in the lab. It very often becomes the foundation for new products, new technologies, and sometimes even whole new companies. This spirit of innovation isn't just happening in the research labs. It's also completely changing the learning experience itself. Technology isn't just a gadget anymore. It's being woven into the very fabric of the modern classroom. And we're seeing this transformation pop up everywhere. You've got online platforms opening up college courses to a global audience. Digital classrooms are making learning way more interactive. And get this, virtual labs let students do complex experiments that would be way too expensive or even dangerous to do in real life. It's all about making education more accessible and more powerful. But of course, no system is perfect. So let's zoom back out for a moment and get a balanced perspective, looking at both the incredible global reach of the US system and some of the really big hurdles it faces right at home. First, let's talk about that global appeal, because it is massive. Students from every corner of the world see US universities as a top destination, not just for a quality degree, but for those unmatched research opportunities and the chance to connect directly with leading industries. And this brings us to the core tension of the entire system. On one side, you have these amazing strengths, a super flexible curriculum, a real focus on practical, hands-on learning, and those incredible industry connections. But on the other side, you have some very real challenges. The incredibly high cost of tuition, the huge issue of student loan debt, and these ongoing tough conversations about making sure everyone has equitable access.
So that brings us to our final section, the final takeaway. After looking at its structure, its strengths, and its challenges, what's the one big idea we should walk away with?
So let's try to boil this entire explainer down to 3 key points. First, it's a system structured in layers, from primary school all the way up. Second, there's a huge focus on higher education as a hub for world-class research. And third, technology is absolutely central to everything, changing both how students learn and how researchers innovate. If you're looking for the system's secret sauce, its defining strength, this is it. Its true power comes from how these 3 things work together: world-class research, a culture that just thrives on innovation, and deep, meaningful integration with industry. So after all of that, the structure, the different schools, the focus on innovation, it really all comes down to one last question. What is this whole massive system ultimately designed to do?
And really, in the simplest terms, it's designed to do this: to support learning, research, and innovation on a massive scale. It's a system built not just to teach individuals, but to actually generate new knowledge and drive progress forward, not just for the US, but for the entire world.